But now we say this every year. It matters more about what you do after you're picked than it does where you're picked. So now the opportunity is for Shedeur Sanders to win the job.
Few quarterback prospects in recent years have entered the draft conversation with as much attention as Shedeur Sanders. From the moment he began playing college football, he was already under a national spotlight. Part of that attention came from his impressive performances on the field. He became one of the most talked about players in college football.
Absolutely, but when I was asked pre-draft, hey, what's the best fit for Shedeur Sanders, I said the Cleveland Browns. Now, I thought it was going to be a pick 2,
Sure.
Or is it trade back into round 1? But he is an ideal fit for Kevin Stefanski's offense. They have some weapons in the passing game with Jerry Jeudy. They added Harold Fannin to go with David Njoku. They've drafted a couple running backs. He can live in that play-action offense. That's what he did best at Colorado. What are his elite traits? Accuracy and toughness. That translates anywhere, so the slide is a little bit ridiculous.
At Colorado, Sanders showed flashes of elite quarterback play. He demonstrated accuracy, poise, and confidence even when facing heavy pressure from opposing defenses. Despite playing behind an offensive line that struggled throughout the season, he still managed to produce impressive passing numbers and deliver several memorable performances. These moments helped build. Every game he played attracted intense scrutiny from fans, analysts, and scouts. His highlights circulated widely across sports media, and discussions about his potential future in the NFL became common on television and online debate shows.
We sat side by side at the combine, and when the attention should have been on guys running the 40, I mean, Shedeur was out shining, blinking. People were taking pictures and calling his name. But from what I've heard, there's some other things that are kind of being kept under the radar in terms of the actual owners and GMs. Because from what the scout told me is that everybody had him as a first or second round grade.
Early draft projections often placed Sanders among the top quarterback prospects in his class. Some analysts even suggested he could be a top 5 pick if his development continued on the same trajectory. His confidence, strong arm talent, and leadership qualities contributed to the belief that he had the potential to develop into a franchise quarterback. However, with that level of hype also comes higher expectations. When a player is constantly discussed as a future star, every weakness becomes magnified. As the draft process began and scouts evaluated his game more closely, some questions started to emerge. Those questions have slowly begun to shift the conversation from pure excitement to a more complicated debate about whether Sanders truly deserves the level of hype surrounding him.
Do you think the Giants would be reaching if they drafted Shedeur Sanders at number 3?
I do. I really do think they would be reaching. And it's not saying that Shedeur Sanders is not going to be a good quarterback in the National Football League. It's just saying the 2 guys that will be available at number 3 are better than him in the draft. And if it's 2 dudes in the draft that are better than you, ahead of you, and you take me, that is reaching.
Before the recent doubts began circulating, many NFL scouts were extremely impressed with what Shedeur Sanders showed during his college career. One of the biggest reasons for this early enthusiasm was his passing accuracy. Sanders consistently demonstrated the ability to deliver precise throws, even in difficult situations. Whether targeting receivers over the middle or placing the ball along the sideline, he showed a strong understanding of timing and placement. Another aspect of his game that caught the attention of scouts was his composure under pressure. Playing behind an inconsistent offensive line at Colorado Buffaloes meant that Sanders often had defenders closing in on him quickly. Despite that, he frequently remained calm in the pocket and attempted to keep plays alive rather than immediately panicking or forcing bad throws. This level of poise is something NFL teams value highly in young quarterbacks. Scouts also admired his football intelligence. Sanders appeared comfortable reading defenses and making adjustments at the line of scrimmage. His ability to recognize defensive coverages and identify open receivers suggested that he could eventually handle the complexity of NFL offensive systems.
Sanders into, because remember when Deion Sanders went to Jackson State, Shedeur was a quarterback. He went to Colorado, had the team meetings out there. Our quarterback's coming. Now he has to go in and win the quarterback job. What can that do for him? Whether he does it this year, next year, whenever.
Leadership was another factor that boosted his early reputation. Teammates often spoke about his confidence and presence in the locker room. Quarterbacks who can command respect from teammates and maintain composure during difficult moments tend to stand out during the scouting process. Finally, Sanders' confidence played a major role in how he was perceived. He never appeared intimidated by the spotlight or the pressure of high-profile games. Instead, he seemed to embrace those moments, often delivering some of his best performances when the attention was at its highest. Because of these qualities, many analysts initially viewed Sanders as a quarterback with strong long-term potential. His combination of accuracy, composure, and leadership created the impression that he could develop into a reliable starter at the professional level.
Think about the era of the NFL that we're in. The final four quarterbacks were Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. On average, those quarterbacks rushed for 590 yards last season. The NFL is moving into an era where if you're a QB, you better be able to run. Shedeur Sanders, he rushed for minus 50 yards last season. Now in college, sacks counts as negative yards. So he couldn't outrush the yards he was getting sacked. Furthermore, on tape, he doesn't look like he runs all that often. He didn't run the 40 at the Combine, and he didn't run the 40 at his NFL showcase, what we also know.
As the draft evaluation process continued, however, some NFL teams began to look more closely at certain aspects of Shedeur Sanders' game that raised concerns. One of the most frequently mentioned issues has been the number of sacks he took during his college career. While part of that problem was related to the offensive line at Colorado Buffaloes, some scouts believe Sanders may also contribute to the issue by holding on to the ball too long. In the NFL, quarterbacks must make decisions extremely quickly. Defensive players are faster, stronger, and more disciplined than those in college football. If a quarterback hesitates for even a moment, a pass rusher can disrupt the play. Because of this, teams carefully analyze how quickly prospects process information and release the ball. Another concern involves Sanders' mobility and ability to escape pressure. While he can move within the pocket, some evaluators question whether he has the athleticism to consistently avoid elite NFL pass rushers. Modern quarterbacks are often expected to extend plays outside the pocket, and teams are debating whether Sanders can do that at a high level.
Like Howie Roseman, general manager for the Eagles, he said something. He said, "We don't think every player in the first round has a first-round grade." In the same breath, Shedeur Sanders, he probably don't have a number 3 overall pick grade, and Cam Ward don't have a number 1 overall pick grade. But you got to draft a quarterback because it's a quarterback-needy league, and you win or die by the quarterback. Shedeur Sanders at 3 is reaching. I think Cam Ward at number 1 is reaching. Travis Hunter, not a reach. Abdul Carter, not a reach. But if you're taking Shedeur at number 3,
there are also questions about how his style of play will translate to professional defenses. College offenses sometimes rely on simplified reads that do not exist in the NFL. Teams want to be sure that Sanders can adjust to more complex defensive schemes. A quarterback is projected as a potential franchise player. Even small weaknesses become major discussion points. Because of these factors, some teams have begun re-evaluating where Sanders truly belongs in the draft hierarchy. Another unusual factor influencing the discussion around Shedeur Sanders is the presence of his father, Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders is one of the most recognizable figures in football, known not only for his Hall of Fame playing career, but also for his strong personality and media presence. While having a famous father can bring advantages, it can also create additional attention that some NFL teams prefer to avoid. Drafting Shedeur Sanders would not just bring a talented quarterback to a franchise, it would also bring constant media coverage connected to Deion Sanders and his outspoken style. Some teams are reportedly considering whether this added spotlight could create distractions. In the NFL, organizations often prefer to control the narrative surrounding their team. The involvement of a high-profile figure like Deion Sanders could potentially make that more complicated.
I think the best path forward for the Browns would be to see what Shedeur can do. Find out if this kid can do it or not.
I agree with you that's the best path objectively for the organization, because if he pops, boom, you've got your franchise guy and you could be full steam ahead, especially behind an improved offensive line and better wide receivers.
There are also questions about how much Deion might have influence over his son's career decisions. While there is no evidence that this would cause problems, sometimes teams worry about outside voices affecting a young player's development or relationship with coaches. On the other hand, supporters argue that this attention could actually benefit a franchise by increasing its national visibility. The Sanders name carries enormous recognition in the football world, and any team drafting Shedeur would instantly become part of that conversation. Ultimately, the Deion effect is not necessarily negative, but it is something teams must consider during the evaluation process. When a prospect already attracts major headlines before even entering the league, franchises have to decide whether they are comfortable operating under that level of constant attention. As the NFL draft approaches, the conversation around Shedeur Sanders has become one of the most polarizing debates among analysts and scouts. Every year, top prospects experience waves of praise followed by waves of criticism as teams and analysts dissect every detail of their game. In many cases, these doubts are simply part of the normal evaluation process rather than a true reflection of a player's future potential. For Sanders, the situation is similar. While some scouts have raised concerns about decision-making speed, sack numbers, and mobility, others still believe he has the tools to become a successful NFL quarterback. His accuracy, confidence, and leadership remain qualities that many teams value highly. Ultimately, the truth will only be revealed once he reaches the professional level. Whether Sanders becomes an early franchise quarterback or proves the doubters wrong later in the draft, one thing is certain: he will remain one of the most closely watched players when draft night finally arrives.